A father of 6, Thomas, sought aid for his starving children, only to be met with a horrifying truth. His kids had been mistakenly sold into forced labor in distant coal mines. The chilling discovery revealed a dark conspiracy orchestrated by ruthless mine owner Barrett and corrupt officials. Witness how one desperate father's unwavering courage exposed a brutal system and brought his family back from the depths of despair. Thomas, a father of 6, his face etched with worry, entered the district bureau for the destitute. His youngest, 5-year-old Lily, clung to his trousers, while the others, from 8-year-old James to 15-year-old Sarah, waited outside, huddled together. After his wife's death, Thomas barely made ends meet, and the benefits were their last hope. He handed the documents to a gaunt clerk in spectacles who perused the papers with an indifferent air. "Thomas O'Malley, right? 6 children?" the clerk asked, running his fingers down a list. "Yes, sir, all mine. They need help," Thomas replied, his voice trembling with weariness and anxiety. The clerk frowned, then looked up, and something strange flickered in his eyes. "O'Malley wait a minute. Your children, they've already been here. A few weeks ago, we transferred them." Thomas's heart skipped a beat. "Transferred? Where? I know nothing about this." The clerk, flustered, began to flip through the papers faster. "It says here, by mistake, of course. There was some confusion with the documents. They were sent north to the coal mines for work under the Orphan Employment Program." The clerk's words hit Thomas like an icy shower. His children? To the mines? By mistake? The shock was so profound he could barely breathe. He couldn't believe his ears. His children, his flesh and blood, had been given into slavery. A wave of burning anger, mixed with horror, began to rise within him. This couldn't be a mistake. This was a crime. Thomas burst out of the bureau, his lungs burning with rage and despair. Lily, James, Sarah, all of them, given to the mines. The thought of his children, so small and defenseless, working in the dark and dirt, tore at his heart. The pain was unbearable. He tried to get more information, but the clerk locked himself in his office, and other employees turned away. No one wanted to talk. He realized this was more than just a mistake. Something dark and powerful was behind it. In despair, Thomas turned to old Mac, a former miner who had lost a leg in an accident and now lived on the outskirts of town, selling homemade crafts. Mac was known for his dislike of authorities and his knowledge of all the region's dark secrets. Thomas told him his story, and Mac, listening, shook his head. "Mines, you say? Up north? That must be Barrett's pits. Subhuman conditions there. They send children when they want them to disappear. No one ever comes back." Mac explained that Barrett, the owner of these mines, was notorious for his cruelty and his connections with corrupt officials who supplied him with cheap labor. He mentioned that Barrett often dealt with a middleman from the capital, who, rumor had it, had connections with the Bureau for the Destitute. Mac's words lit a tiny spark of hope in Thomas's soul. If there was a middleman, there was a trail. If there were mines, his children were there. He couldn't leave them. He had to find them, no matter the cost. His anger at those who dared to do this to his family became his driving force. He felt his pain transform into determination. He would find his children and make the culprits pay. With Mac's help, who knew the mountain trails, Thomas set off north, into the mountains. The journey was long and perilous. Days turned into weeks. They hiked through dense forests, crossed rushing rivers, and avoided Barrett's patrols. Every step was fraught with risk, but the image of his children working in the mines spurred him onward. Finally, they reached Barrett's mines. It was a bleak, hellish place, shrouded in coal dust and groans. From behind the high walls came the clang of tools and the shouts of overseers. Thomas and Mac infiltrated under the cover of night. What Thomas saw there horrified him. Children, many no older than his Lily, worked in dark, narrow seams, their faces covered in soot, their eyes dull from exhaustion. They were beaten, poorly fed, and literally enslaved. Thomas saw his children, James trying to shield Lily from an overseer's blows, Sarah, who looked older than her years from weariness, and the others. His heart clenched with pain, but that pain immediately turned into scorching anger. This wasn't just labor. This was slavery. Thomas learned that the chief overseer, Grimm, was Barrett's right-hand man, and Barrett himself regularly received shipments of children from the middleman at the Bureau for the Destitute. He also overheard a conversation in which Barrett boasted that no one would dare interfere with him as he paid off everyone who needed paying, including some in the capital. Thomas realized that an entire web of corruption was behind this. He had to not only save his children, but also expose this entire dirty scheme. In his heart, hope ignited. Hope that he could not only rescue his children, but also put an end to this horror. Thomas returned from the mines with irrefutable evidence. He secretly sketched the mines, collected scraps of documents confirming Barrett's connection to the Bureau, and even recorded testimonies from several escaped children whom Mack helped him find. His anger was righteous, but he understood that he had to act cleverly. He couldn't just return to town and accuse everyone. Mack suggested they approach Senator Morris, known for his fight against corruption and his advocacy for workers' rights. Senator Morris, a man with a firm gaze and an impeccable reputation, was initially skeptical, but when Thomas laid out the entire story and presented the evidence, the senator's face darkened. He was in shock at the scale of the inhumanity. "This is monstrous," he muttered, his voice trembling with rage. He immediately contacted federal agents and initiated an investigation. The operation was conducted under the cover of night. Federal marshals, led by Senator Morris, suddenly raided Barrett's mines. Barrett and his men were caught off guard. The children were freed. Thomas rushed to his children, embracing each of them, his eyes full of tears of relief and triumph. Then the Rangers stormed the District Bureau for the Destitute. The clerk who had mistakenly sent the children was arrested, and his confession led to the arrest of the middleman and other corrupt officials. The trial of Barrett and his accomplices became a sensation. Thomas and his children, as well as other freed children, testified. Their words, despite the horrors they had endured, were filled with such pain that they shook the entire court. Irrefutable evidence was presented, including Wilkins's financial manipulations and his connection to Barrett. The verdict was harsh. Barrett and his overseers received life sentences for kidnapping, slavery, and cruel treatment of children. The corrupt officials also received long sentences. The triumph was complete. All the children were freed and placed in orphanages, where they received care and help to recover. Thomas and his family, though they had endured terrible things, were now together, free, and received compensation that allowed them to start a new life. There was no more hunger in their eyes, only light. The story of Thomas, a father who single-handedly defied a powerful system to save his children, became a legend. It inspired many to fight for justice and protect the innocent, reminding everyone that true courage can shine even in the most desperate circumstances.